Every system has a story, and every story teaches us something about design, decisions, and discovery. You are listening to Systems and Stories, where code meets clarity and architecture meets experience. Hosted by me, Sanal, together we will explore lessons behind the systems we build and the stories that shape us. Some of the most dangerous failures in modern systems don't come from bugs or crashes. They come from systems that are healthy, responsive, and doing exactly what they were allowed to do, just at the speed where humans can't interfere anymore. Welcome back to Systems and Stories. I am Sanal, architect, storyteller, and someone who spent enough time around systems to know that they usually don't fail loudly. They fail quietly by doing exactly what we allow them to do. And this is one such story. In late 2012, US exchanges were introducing something called the Retail Liquidity Program, or RLP. A company named Knight Capital Group needed to update their trading software to support this. Knight Capital wasn't a reckless company. They were one of the largest market makers in the US, handling enormous trading volumes every day. Their system was fast, mature, and trusted, both internally and by the market. Now, here's where the story starts to turn. Inside Knight Capital system lived an old piece of code called PowerPeg. It had been written years earlier, around 2003, and it was never meant for real trading. Its job was to deliberately behave badly, buying high and selling low, so the other parts of system could be tested against it. Over time, this algorithm was deprecated, but it wasn't removed. It just stopped being used. It sat there, dormant, controlled by a feature flag that everyone assumed was permanently off. Fast forward to 2012, instead of creating a brand new flag for RLP, engineers reused that old flag bit. The thinking was simple. This flag is unused and the old algorithm is effectively dead everywhere, so why not reuse it? Now, Knight Capital had 8 production servers running this trading software. The deployment of the new code was done manually, server by server. 7 servers were updated correctly, 1 was not. There was no automated check to verify that all 8 servers were on the same state. So when the market opened on 1st August and the RLP flag was turned on, here's what happened. On 7 servers, the RLP logic activated just as intended. On the 8th server, the same flag meant something very different. It woke up the PowerPeg. That one server immediately began executing an algorithm that was never meant to run in live markets. And it didn't just run briefly. The old algorithm was designed to keep trading until it reached a certain number of executed shares. But the part of the system responsible for confirming the completed trades had been broken years earlier during a refactor. So PowerPeg never got the signal that it was done. From its point of view, it still had unfinished work. So it kept on going. In 45 minutes, that single server executed millions of trades across hundreds of stocks, aggressively buying and selling at loss. From a market's perspective, everything was valid. From a system's perspective, nothing was technically wrong. People noticed something strange on the dashboards, but there was no clean error. No crash, no alarm that said, shut this thing down. By the time engineers identified the problem and stopped the system, Knight Capital had lost around $440 million. That was more than their previous year's revenue. And the trouble didn't stop there. Shutting the system down didn't undo the trades. The company now owned massive unwanted positions in the market. Unwinding those positions had to be done manually in public view. Other traders saw what was happening, prices moved against them, and losses deepened. Even the recovery amplified the damage. Knight Capital survived only because emergency capital was injected days later by other companies. But the firm never truly recovered. Within a year, it was gone. Now, when people summarize this incident, they often reduce it to someone forgot to update a server. That's technically true, but this wasn't one mistake. It was a chain of very reasonable decisions. Legacy code was left in place because removing it felt risky. The feature flag was reused to avoid complexity. Manual deployment was trusted because it had worked before. Recovery paths weren't tested as often as deployment paths. Humans were expected to intervene in a system operating at machine speed. None of these choices were reckless in isolation, but together they created a system that could do enormous damage faster than anyone could understand what was happening. This is the part where it gets uncomfortable for us because most of us recognize pieces of this story. We all have that old code in our system that isn't used anymore. We have feature flags that has outlived its original purpose. We have systems where rollback is harder than the rollout. There are manual steps that almost never fail. And then there is monitoring that tells us something is wrong, but not what. And most days, that's fine. System behaves, nothing breaks. Until one day, a combination of assumptions line up in just the wrong way. What makes incidents like this so damaging isn't their likelihood, it's their impact. A single unexpected lapse can outweigh years of correct behavior. Looking back, it's easy to say what could have helped. Legacy code should have been removed, not just disabled. Feature flags should have a clear ownership. Deployments should be verifiably uniform. And there should be kill switches that are instant and global. Or recovery paths should have been tested more rigorously as deployments. But here's the more useful question. What does this mean for modern systems? Today, we rely more on feature flags, partial rollouts, continuous deployments, and automations that are acting faster than humans can react. So the lesson still applies. Modern systems need stronger guarantees about consistency. There should be a clear blast radius limits. Also, there should be automated checks that enforce invariance. And we should have observability that explains the behavior, not just the system. And most importantly, there should be ability to stop safely and immediately. Scaling is easy, but stopping is hard, and that's where maturity lies. The Knight Capital story isn't about finance, it's about trust. It's about trust in flags, trust in deployments, trust that humans can always catch problems in time. The system didn't fail because it was broken. It failed because it was allowed to do too much, too quickly, without enough friction. And that's a pattern that shows up everywhere. If there is one takeaway, it's this. The most dangerous failures aren't caused by obvious bugs. They are caused by ordinary systems operating exactly as designed under the conditions nobody revisited. And that's why it matters, because once you see them clearly, you realize this isn't someone else's story, it's ours. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who still has that legacy code running in their system. See you in the next one.